Hey guys, I know I skipped out on Don't Breathe. I had good reason for that, okay? But going straight to Morgan, I know I'm a little bit late for it, and we might have to have another debate over whether or not this is actually a horror movie. I don't fucking care, because the reason why I wanted to see this movie was because the way it was advertised, like the trailer, it made it look like it was SCP Containment Breach the movie, and I was kind of right to assume that. I'll get to that eventually, but I feel this. So the movie starts off with like this. We're in like a room. We're viewing this through security cameras and shit. And this woman's like sitting down at a table, and there's like Morgan. I'll explain more about her later. Like, she's like, Morgan, I'm really sorry, but I couldn't convince them to let you go outside again. And Morgan, in reaction to this, throws all her shit off the table and just goes to stab that bitch in the eye. And then, like, other doctors sedate her, and yeah. Great way to start. So, then it cuts to this lady named Lee, she's traveling through the mountains because she has to be there for, like, risk assessment or something, whatever. She's got, like, orders from, like, the mysterious corporation that, like, runs all this shit and everything. Yeah. And like the lab where like this shit is going down, like they've got an underground lab that's like really super high tech and shit, but the house where everyone lives, like all the scientists and whatever, like it's the oldest fucking house in the universe. Yeah. So apparently like there's supposed to be like a psychologist that's coming to like check Morgan out or whatever, and he's a day late, so Lee has to stay an extra day, and she gets introduced to everybody. I don't even expect me to try to remember everybody's names. There's the two that are fucking. There's Skip, who's like the nutritionist who like cooks all the food. There's the main doctor lady, the main doctor guy, Ted, who doesn't really do anything, and Amy, who's like the behaviorist or whatever. Like, she hangs out with Morgan the most. So yeah, we got like a big cast of characters here, sort of. And yeah, so we get like all this info about Morgan. They're like, oh, she was walking at like 1 month or something, and she's 5 years old, but because like DNA fuckery, she looks like she's in her teens, I guess. So then Lee eventually meets Morgan, and she's like, do you know why I'm here? Like, it's like Morgan has like these sort of like psychic powers. Like, she knows Lee's name before she's introduced, and she knows exactly why she's there. Like, I guess she can read minds or some shit. I don't know. I don't know what the purpose of this experiment was. Whatever. So yeah, she's like, can you tell me what happened with like that part where you stabbed that bitch in the eye? And she's just like, it was an error. I feel really bad about it. It was a mistake, and I'm sorry. And they're like, okay, whatever. And yeah. So that happens, and then Lee just like kind of leaves and shit, and like, yeah. And then later, like, Amy, because Amy has some fucking issues. Like, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that she's terrible at her job, because like she's so connected with Morgan. Like, she like goes down into like her containment unit or whatever. She turns off all the cameras, and then she talks to her. She's like everything's gonna be okay tomorrow, just be yourself. And she leans up against the glass, and like they have a moment, and it's kind of awkward. Yeah. And the one thing that kind of bothers me, the slightest bit about Morgan, like, not just the fact that she has, like, a really weird looking face, like, she's wearing, like, obvious lipstick, whatever. So, she is consistently wearing, like, this big-ass hoodie, which is apparently, like, the hallmark for, like, scary people these days. Like, fuck, how many scary characters are wearing hoodies these days? I swear to God. And she's got like these ratty ass sneakers. It's like, I get it, it's an experiment, you're just keeping her in this room or whatever, but like, maybe you should get this bitch some better clothes. I don't know, like, whatever. So yeah, then like the next day the doctor shows up and shit, and like Morgan, like, before he comes, like, she's, like, sitting around having a flashback of, like, when Amy fucked up and, like, took her too far into the woods. Like, she wasn't supposed to, like, take her out of, like, their general area, but she took her, like, deeper into the woods. And, oh, yeah. So, they're just chilling in the woods, and they come across a deer that's, like, lying on the ground. It's been impaled on, like, a stick or something. And Morgan, like, she sits over there, she tries to calm the deer down and everything, and then she's like, well, shit, I don't know what to do about this, and then she straight up breaks the deer's neck. And I'm just like, I know I was thinking SCP containment breach, but I didn't expect actual neck breaking. Like, oh my god. Yeah, so flashback ends, and then the psychiatrist or psychologist, whatever, played by Paul Giamatti, oh boy, yeah, he shows up, and, like, he's in a totally bad mood, and he's like, they're trying to get him to, like, conduct the therapy session, like, from behind the glass, and he's like, if I have to conduct this from behind the glass, as far as I'm concerned, she's already failed the assessment. So they let him sit in there, and like, he keeps asking her questions, like, he's like, do you consider these people your friends? Like, they keep you locked up in here. And he asks her about, like, who she loves, like, what emotions she feels, and all that crap. Like, it's very tense. And then he asks her, like, what would your emotional reaction be if I suggested that you should be terminated or kept in this room forever and, like, never allowed to leave? And she says, I don't know. And he starts, like, screaming at her, like, he's really unprofessional. Like, I don't get what his fucking problem is. And, like, Morgan starts doing, like, this thing where, like, she looks at her hands and, like, on both sides, like, I don't get it, but yeah. And then he's like, show me what you're feeling. And she, like, pushes him back, like he's in a rolling chair. She, like, shoves him back into a wall, and then she just straight out takes a bite out of his neck. Like, she bites a huge chunk, and then she spits it out, and holy shit. Like, Jesus Christ. And Paul Giamatti's just dead. I mean, I wasn't expecting that. Like, it just seems random, right? Like, she broke a neck before she stabs bitches in the eye, but why did she take a bite out of him? And why, like, are her teeth sharp or something? They didn't look sharp. Whatever. So then, like, Lee, she had, like, a gun in her back pocket. She's totally ready for this shit. And, like, one of the scientists dude goes in to try to, like, sedate Morgan. She like, escapes and kicks his ass. And, yeah. So, like, Lee grabs the tranquilizer gun, and she starts walking back out of the lab and shit, and, like, Morgan, she manages to make it outside, and Amy's out there, and she's like, Morgan, what the fuck? And then Lee just comes up behind her and straight up shoots her with, like, the dart. Yeah. So, basically, shit has been fucked, alright? So, you just can't with this shit when, like, a dude just gets murdered for no real reason, even if he was being a dick. So, clearly, they gotta get rid of this bitch. They have to terminate Morgan, and, yeah. So, they lie her down on, like, this table, they strap her in, and, like, Morgan's crying, and she calls, like, the lead doctor lady mom and shit, and it's all very dramatic, and then they knock her out with a sedative or whatever, and then they're about to, like, do the lethal injection thing. And, like, at that point, both the lead doctor lady and the lead doctor guy leave. And, yeah. Then, the dude who is about to do the injection, he's like, fuck y'all, I'm not doing it. And he just leaves. And the lady who he's banging also, like, goes with him. And, yeah. And they're just like, you know, we need to get the fuck out of here. So, then Lee's like, well, I'm just here to do my fucking job. So she goes in there, and she grabs the syringe. She's like, I'm gonna kill Morgan myself. And Ted's just like, you can't do that. But she breaks out the martial arts and just, like, punches him in the face and, like, knocks him the fuck out. But Amy grabs the tranquilizer gun and shoots her in the back. And she passes out. Yeah. And then when she wakes up, she's in Morgan's cell. And it's just like, ooh, the tables have turned. And Ted's there and he's like, we can't let you out. She's like, I've already called the corporation. Their dudes are going to be here in, like, 24 hours. And he's like, yeah, I know. But, like, you stay in there until then. Yeah. So, then Morgan wakes up. And, like, everybody's rushing around. They're grabbing all their notes, putting them in duffel bags. They're like, we're getting the fuck out of here. And, oh my god. Shit starts getting real fucking real. Like, Morgan wakes up, and the dude who was going to kill her but didn't from earlier, he sits her up and he's like, hey Morgan, wake up. And then she fucking headbutts him, and then she beats the shit out of him, and then she takes the syringe with the lethal shit in it and she stabs him in the stomach with it and ejects it. Oh, fucking, that was nasty, man. Ah, dude. And then Ted, he has the gun that he stole it from Lee, and he points at her, and he's like, Morgan, you need to fucking chill. And she's like, fuck you, dude, you chill. And she steals the gun from him, and then she shoots him in, like, the stomach, and he wanders back in front of, like, the glass wall of the cage, and Lee's seeing it, and then he turns and looks at her, and it looks like he's about to say a line, but he gets shot in the head. Because, of course. Yeah. So then Morgan steps out, and Lee's like, open up the cage, and she's like, I'm sorry. I'm finally starting to feel like myself. And then, like, she runs off with Amy. Because, like, Amy promised to take her to this fucking lake or something, and that's where she wants to go now. But, like, she's like, Amy is the only one who loves me, and the rest of those people aren't my friends, so I gotta kill all of them. Yeah. So, she makes it outside, and then, like, the lady who was dating, like, the guy that just died, Morgan pulls a gun on her, and she's like, just chill, Morgan. And then out of nowhere, like, karate moves, and, like, she punches her in the face, and they get into a bit of a tussle, but then, like, Morgan literally beats her to death, and I was just like, holy shit, that's a bit extreme. Yeah. Touch extreme. Anyway, so yeah, she gives the gun to Amy, and she's like, here, wait in the car. I gotta go say goodbye to Mom, which is, like, the lead doctor lady. Yeah. So, like, then she goes inside the house, and the lead doctor lady is, like, making a video confession, and she's like, we have failed when we made Morgan. Shit got real fucked up. And then, like, Morgan shows up, and she's like, and the doctor lady's like, I'm sorry, and Morgan's like, okay, but whatever, and then she either, like, breaks her neck or she strangles her. I couldn't really tell. I think she strangled her, and then she died. Yeah, that happened. So, meanwhile, Lee is, like, she's still stuck in the cage, right? She tries to, like, break the glass and shit, but there's these skylights, and she climbs all the way to, like, the top of the skylight, and she breaks that shit open, which was really fucking impressive, actually. And she gets out, and, like, Skip is, like, he's, like, seen this shit going down, and he's like, bro, what the fuck is happening? And she's like, get your gun, because, like, he had guns because he's, like, a hunter, because they're in the mountains, and that's how they get their food and shit. So, yeah. She's like, go get your gun, and we gotta fight this shit. So, yeah. Lee goes into the house, and she's looking for Morgan, and she comes across, like, the lead doctor guy who has hung himself in his closet. Okay. And also, in the meantime, Morgan has beat the shit out of that lady, like, you know, the one that she stabbed in the eye? She just, like, she beat the shit out of her until she died. And then, like, she kicked her, and, like, her face cracked and shit. It was gross. Yeah, that happened. And then, man. So, then Lee finds the doctor's dead body, and then her and Morgan get into a big-ass fight, like, I get it. Morgan was, like, an incredible DNA experiment and shit, but when did they teach her mixed martial arts? Like, she's got some serious fighting moves that kind of seem unreasonable, just a little bit. I'm just saying. So, yeah. And then they, like, fall out of a window, and instead of killing her, like, she beats the shit out of Lee for a little bit, but then Skip shows up with his gun, and she's like, fuck it, we gotta get out of here. So she gets into the car that Amy's in, and apparently Morgan can drive. Like, when did they teach her that? Did she learn by osmosis? Like, I'm not really understanding the full, like, scope of her powers. I guess that's the point, though. So, yeah. Then they drive off. Like, what? I'm gonna be quite honest. Out of all the things I expected in this movie, a car chase was really not one of them. Like, Lee chases them down in her car. Like, I believe she is, like, the car that Morgan's driving is a Dodge Caravan, and Lee is driving a Mercedes, and I'm just like, I drive a Dodge Caravan. There is no fucking way that van is out driving a Mercedes. No fucking way. So, yeah. But then, like, Lee gets shoved off the road and crashes into a tree, but Skip catches up to her in his car, and they go chasing after them because he knows where they're going. It's to the lake and shit. Which apparently Morgan just knows how to get to because mind reading or some shit. I don't get it, but yeah, she knows how to get there, and they just stop at the end of a road that just stops at the entrance to a forest, and they go walking through the forest and shit. Because apparently, like, this movie really wants to show us the beauty of nature. Because it has some really beautiful nature in it and shit. I'm just saying. So then Lee, she goes running after with the gun she took from Skip, and she's like, Skip, stay here. And he's like, all right, what the fuck ever. And she runs off with his gun, and like, she walks real slow through the woods, and, like, she gets sort of lost, and she almost shoots a deer because she thought it was Morgan. And meanwhile, Morgan and Amy have finally gotten to the lake, and Morgan's like, is this what heaven is like? Yeah. This is fucking silly. And then Lee's trying to start some shit, so she just fires off randomly into the air to get their attention or something. And then eventually Morgan finds her. They get into another fight where, goddamn, like, Morgan shoves her back so hard she gets impaled on a branch from a tree. And yeah. Then, like, you think Morgan's gonna break her neck too, but she doesn't because symbolism, I guess. I don't know. And then she goes back to Amy, and she's like, we need to get the fuck out of here. And Amy has started to, like, sort of snap a little bit. She's like, no, man, we gotta stop this shit. And she looks like she's about to shoot her, but then, like, Lee is right behind her because apparently she can just shrug off a stab wound, and she beats the fucking shit out of Morgan. Like, she pushes her into the water, and then she just, like, straight up drowns her. Was not expecting that. Like, she just straight up drowns Morgan. And then she jumps back up onto the dock, and she grabs the gun from Amy, and Amy's just like, well, like, what do we even fucking do here? And then she turns to look at Lee, and then Lee shoots her in the head. Like, for real. Oh boy. That's brutal. Yeah. So then she leaves the woods, and Skip's waiting by the car, and he's like, what the hell happened? She's like, I took care of it. Like, Morgan's dead? And she's like, yeah. And then he's like, where's Amy? And she didn't seem like she wanted to kill him, but since he asked too many questions, she shoots him in the head. And that happens, yeah. And then, yeah, the movie's kind of over. Like, we get, like, these corporate dudes are talking, and he's just like, the project was a failure, all these casualties were unfortunate, but, like, it was a necessity that the project had to be terminated and shit, so it's best to stick to what we know and just continue on with, like, this other line of things we're doing. Like, I guess they just fuck with human DNA for, like, a corporate purpose. I don't really know why, but then they're like, oh yeah, what do we do about this Lee? And he's like, what do you mean, what do we do? She's perfect. And then, like, you see Lee sitting at, like, a table in a diner or some shit, and she does the thing with her hands, like, she looks at, like, both sides of him, just like Morgan did, so, like, I guess she's also a DNA experiment thing that the corporation made. Dun dun dun. Like, this movie confused me. Like, I understand the plot perfectly well, but it just seemed a little bit unorganized, you know? Like, with, like, how, like, they sort of frame, like, Morgan discovering things and, like, finding life as, like, mystical, but also, like, shit gets fucked up because she kills things. Like, I don't know. I guess we could all say this is Amy's fault because she's really fucking bad at her job. Like, she broke the rules several times. Like, she got way too attached. Like, everybody in that whole experiment got way too attached. I guess, like, that was the problem. Yeah, fair enough to say. Like, they're all, like, acting like Morgan is their daughter when, like, she's just being made for a corporation and shit. Yeah. I don't know, I just feel like this concept could have been done just slightly better. I don't know. There's something felt off about the movie to me. Oh, and like Morgan, like, she has, like, telepathic or telekinetic powers and shit, and honestly, she kind of reminds me of Ruvik from The Evil Within, just the slightest bit without the scarring and everything. It's just because of the hoodie and the telekinetic powers. I don't know. It's just odd. I mean, if you're interested, may as well go see it. But if you're on the fence, don't bother. I mean, it has some good fight scenes, but it's just kind of eh. Like, it's not really, like, good or bad. It's just kind of eh. I don't know. So, yeah. I think that's all I got to say about it. I don't know what the next horror movie coming out is. Probably won't be till September. No, we are in September. I believe it's Blair Witch, which I may or may not be going to see. I don't know. Found footage is kind of fucking lame these days, but I'll think about it. Whatever. Alright. Bye.